Greetings viewers, I am Eric the Car Guy and I'm also known as ETCG1 when posting videos to this channel. And here on ETCG1 I start things off with, hey, if it's your birthday, happy birthday, please enjoy this digital cake. From time to time I get emails or requests on social media asking me about a given tool or something like that. And certain tools I get asked about more than others. I thought in this particular episode of ETCG1 I would talk about some of those tools and provide some updates for those of you that may be curious about it. And at the end, if I miss something, well, down in the comments, let me know what you want to know about, and I'll see if I can do an update then. Anyway, let's check out some of the tools I get asked about quite a bit. I can't say that this one is necessarily number one that I get asked about, but it's pretty darn close, and that's my bend pack lift, which I've now had for about 6 years. It has served me very well and what really marked a turning point in my channel and the work that I do. The bend pack lift, like I said, has been good to me up to this point. There are a couple of issues, I'll show you. Now, something that's plagued this lift since the day I got it is small leaks at these hydraulic fittings. It's not a big leak, it's just a very small seepage is what I would call it, but it does collect dirt and leaves the residue that you see here. Is it debilitating? No. Is it annoying? Yes. And I wish it was different, but this is one of the things that's been bugging me about this lift. Once again, it doesn't affect how the lift works at all. Here's the other side. Similar issue, but I think the other side is actually worse than this side. There was one, well, I guess you'd call it a major issue, but it was really an easy fix, and I did it myself. It did happen, I think it was about a year ago or so, but there's a valve down inside here that got clogged up, and what it caused was the lift wouldn't work. The hydraulic pressure wouldn't operate. And it's actually, I think, a common thing with hydraulic pumps like this is from time to time there's an issue. And like I said, all I had to do was remove this valve, clean everything out, and put it back together, and now it works again. For the most part though, for the amount of work that I've been able to do with this lift, it, like I said, has really changed everything in the shop. And a worthy investment if you're going to be working on any significant amount of vehicles in your shop. My air compressor and air system comes up from time to time. And once again, it's something that has served me well and it has functioned well. Although I will say this, lately, it seems to not make the same kind of volume that it once did. I say this when I'm running things like my cutoff wheel or something like that. It just doesn't seem to have the same power it did when it first started. And I'm not really sure what to attribute that to because the pressure is good. It's off right now, so that's leaked down a bit. So the pressures are good. It's just for whatever reason, I don't seem to get the same amount coming out of well, the air system as I first did, and I really have no explanation as to why that is. But other than that, I mean, the compressor and the air system have served me quite well over the years, and this has been installed now for, 3 years, I think? At least 3, possibly 4. Sticking with the shop equipment theme, also my tire changing machine and my tire balancer. I get asked about these from time to time. And the tire machine has served me very well and I've been very happy with it. I really like the helper arms and things with this. This I never had with any other tire machine, and this is life-changing when changing especially low-profile tires. So that part of it has always worked out well. I've always been very happy with the tire changing machine. The balancer, on the other hand, well, when I first started running it, I was running it on 110 electricity, and then I was having some issues, and I talked to Bend Pack, which also makes this, and they suggested that I run it on 220 instead. And I will say that that did make an improvement in its performance, but it is probably the most picky, the most finicky balancer I have ever worked with. You have to be dead on, especially if you're using stick-on weights in order for you to get the balance correct. In fact, people often comment to my videos that I'm adding more than 2 weights to a wheel and talk about that, but they've never tried balancing anything with this machine, which, like I said, can be somewhat challenging. I kind of wish this arm was placed differently. This is an older machine, so they may have updated the design. And also the braking, like when the balancer's done balancing, I actually often use the manual brake down here to get the wheel to stop spinning. Not a big deal, and I have come to terms with it. I mean, you use the tool for a certain amount of time, you end up learning its little quirks and things, and well, we've come to an understanding. But as I said, I'm much happier with the tire changer than I am with the tire balancing that I have here. Not that this doesn't work, it's just I have to, well, work with it, let's just say. It's been years since I used my brake lathe, I'll admit it. I'm very grateful that Benpack sent it so that I have it. I mean, I love having it, but it pretty much stays under this cover, and that's probably not the best thing. I probably should start it up and run it every once in a while to circulate the oil through it, but that's on me. But as far as its performance, every time I've used it, it's worked flawlessly, and I'm glad to have it, but I wish I used it more. But I guess machining things is kind of something that, well, we used to do, not that we do these days. The shop press. This is something I get asked about from time to time. This, well, I mean, there's really not much to it. It's a bottle jack and a metal frame. And it's pretty simple, straightforward. It's done what I've needed it to do for the most part, unless you're working on Ford Explorer wheel bearings. You might remember that video. But aside from that, I've never had anything that my press couldn't handle. But I've overall been happy with the way it's worked, at least for this shop. My Brannock spring compressor, I'm always happy to have it when I use it because, well, it feels a lot safer than the things that I used to do. The only thing is it's large and it mounts to the wall like this. I almost wish I had one of those smaller spring compressors that fits in like a vise or something. Sometimes I wish for that, but to be honest, I'm always happy to have this. I've never had a spring that it couldn't handle, and it's always done good work. It's just, you know, big, bulky, and lives in this part of the shop, and nothing else can live here as a result. Absolutely zero regrets with pallet racking and organization. This is probably one of the things that brought the shop to the next level in my mind. So pallet racking, some sort of good shelving system, man, it really makes all the difference. And for me, the organization and everything that I got out of this and the space savings alone, this was worth every penny that I paid for it. My badass workbench is one of those things that I look at, and every time I look at it, it makes me smile. I absolutely love this work surface. The tool wall is new, and when we get to that point, I'll talk about it. Working on this surface is fantastic. I can weld on it too. I just clamp the ground to here. I've done it and welded things right on this table. It's freaking awesome. I love this thing. And people mentioned, well, okay, the drawers and everything, you lose 15% of the drawer space because of how things open. Well, okay, whatever, but I mean, this thing is built like a brick poop house. It is, there's nothing that's gonna take this bench down. I mean, I think even if I dropped it, it would probably laugh at me. And I love the fact that I have multiple receivers for the vise that I can put on and take off. Here's how it is on the side here. Now I've modified them with this screw to help tighten things up so this is mounted firmly, it doesn't flop around. That was viewer suggested. I just welded nuts onto the end of here and put this bolt in and tighten them down whenever I move it from place to place, but they were kind enough to put another receiver over here, and I asked for an extra one for this bench, which also gets used. It's nice to be able to move the vise around the shop like this. As long as we're talking about the workbench and the vise, let's talk about this vise. This Wilton Vise. If you need a vise, get a Wilton. I'll just say that. This thing is fantastic. I was excited before I got it. It didn't disappoint. This thing has been a workhorse ever since it showed up at the shop. It replaced my older vise, which, well, let's just say didn't have the same quality. But this thing, I absolutely love it. I love my anvil that's up here, and it's just, and you can flip this whole thing around, by the way. Anyway, Wilton Vise, got nothing bad to say about that. My longevity MIG welder and plasma cutter, you see that down there. Now, I've used the welder way more than I've used the plasma cutter, and the plasma cutter has worked just fine. I haven't had any issues with that. The welder, on the other hand, I mean, it's not a bad welder. I'm not going to say that, and for the money, it's worth it. The issue that I have with it at times is if I don't have this, for lack of a better word, the hose that goes to the feed and everything. If I don't have that laid out just right, if there's any kinks in it whatsoever, the wire feed doesn't feed right, and I have some issues. Now, some might say to tighten up the wire on the inside of this, maybe that's what I need to do, but that's pretty much the only issue I've had. And it took me a while when I was learning to weld to figure out that that's what the problem was, because there were times when I would make adjustments here, and I would get no feedback whatsoever. I'm like, what the heck? Why is this not working? The one thing that I learned while welding though is that if you want good welds, start with clean metal. The cleaner the metal, the better the weld. That's the one thing that I learned that is probably the most important takeaway from learning how to weld, for me anyway. I often get asked about my Milwaukee Tools, which you probably see me using more than just about anything else. And I have to say about all of my Milwaukee Tools, I love them all. As far as electric tools go, they've been my favorite electric tools ever. And I'm not just saying that because I like the people that work there. I'm saying that because I really like these tools and they've held up well. However, this Ingersoll Rand 3/8 has been my go-to and my favorite. For some reason, I like this better than any other electric 3/8 impact that I've had. Part of it is I really like that ring light and the hand tighten feature. Those things I really like about this, and just the way it feels, the ergonomics of it. I really like this tool a lot, but overall, I really like the Milwaukee stuff. Now, I haven't used these ratchets as much as I've used these Milwaukee electric ratchets, and you can probably see why. Look at the difference in the battery size and everything that I've got going on here. All right, now I'm gonna finish this video out with what I get asked about more than any other tool. What do you think it is? If you said my gray pneumatic sockets, then you are correct. I have this 1/4 inch set here. I also have this 3/8 set here that I've been using, and I've been using these for years. And I wanted gray pneumatic sockets from the beginning, and I was fortunate enough to get a set. These are thin wall impact sockets. So they are thin wall like chrome, but they're also impact sockets. Love them, absolutely love them. Never had any issues with them. The markings and everything seem to stay intact. I mean, I've used these quite a bit since I got them, and I've never had any issues. But the tools that I get asked about the most, I still get emails to this day about my gray pneumatic stuff, and I can say with confidence that I do like them very much. Although I'm not as fond of their ratchets. I love the sockets, but I usually end up using one of my other ratchets. A lot of times my go-to is this 1/4 inch snap-on here. Although I just got this super long one from Gear Wrench. This may be my new favorite. I like long wrenches. But aside from that, the sockets, I've got no complaints about those. So if you're considering gray pneumatic sockets, get them. I mean, I love mine. Well, I hope that catches you up on some of the things that you might have been curious about here in the shop. Like I said, I've been getting emails and requests on social media about this stuff for years now for some of these things. And I hope this provided some useful information for you if you were considering purchasing any of these tools. What I'll do is I'll link either the tool review that I did or the tools themselves down in the description if you're curious about anything that you saw in this video. As far as tool reviews go, every time I post something about tools, this comes up and people ask me, like, Eric, when are you gonna do tool reviews again? Well, one of the reasons I stopped doing tool reviews was because, well, it's one less video for me to produce every week, but also, you know, I'd get sent a new tool and I really wouldn't have time to use it and live with it for a while. So it really wasn't a good review in my mind. I can't just get a tool and in a week assess it, especially if it's a specialty tool like a ball joint press or something. Can't really assess its capabilities until I actually get a chance to press a ball joint. So that's one of the reasons I've sort of stepped away from that a little bit and tried to focus more on repair kind of stuff and, you know, more of the things that I'm doing here in the shop. But anyway, links in the description to stuff if you're curious about it. Please, if you're curious about something that I didn't talk about or show, talk about that in the comments. Talk about your favorite tools. Talk about your least favorite tools. Let's talk about tools down in the comments. Remember, in the description, additional information, including a link to ericthecarguy.com, which is where I ask you go if you have automotive questions. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the video with the world. Appreciate it when you do that. Be safe, have fun, stay dirty. Thank you so much for watching today, and I will see you next time.